tendency to go for PPP is creating a totally new channel of corruption. Not only is a question of giving money.
Sharmaji, shall we discuss that when we come to Prevention of Corruption Act? Actually, there's some issue there that definitely is going to come. Madhu.
No, before I say anything, I'd like a clarification. Are we going to discuss powers and functions separately after we've handled the CBI matter?
This is powers and functions.
If it is, then I would like to say the following, which is, it emanates from the Jan Lokpal bill. I find the draconianness of some of the powers envisaged. Those need to be very carefully fine-tuned. For example, it says, just a second. Yeah, just give me a minute. I had it in front of me and then. Yeah, now page 33 of this handbook that you gave us, which is where it has a function, it says, the Lokpal, after getting such inquiries and investigations as it done, may take one of the following actions. And there it ranges from initiate prosecution to order cancellation of a license or lease or permission, blacklist a company, and so on and so forth. Now, on the one hand, we are saying it's not a judge. On the other hand, these are functions that only a court, after due process, undertakes. Secondly, on the next page itself, one second, it was even more just draconian. Where in consequence of information, this is page 34, where in consequence of information in his possession, the Lokpal had reason to believe. Now, reason to believe is a very vague term. Then the person, the Lokpal then, if he has reason to believe that any person is in possession of any money, bullion, jewelry or other valuable article or things, etc., either wholly or partly, income or property which has not been disclosed, etc., order, search warrant, seizure, and much else. Now these are extremely draconian powers, because if you said after due investigation, if it has been found, then of course if you attach somebody's property or order the cancellation of a contract, or because through this is what I meant in the morning by the ideological baggage. And that is coming up again and again about PPP partnership, about investment, foreign investment, in the mindset of certain number of people in this country. The very act of investment is a crime. Anybody who has wealth is half criminal. Foreign investment is a betrayal of national interest. The point that I'm trying to make is that those issues have to be settled through a different political process. What economic policies we follow, whether we follow the liberalization route or we go back to socialism, those are not issues that the Lokpal should be empowered to take the direct, because then it will also depend on the ideological predilections of the Lokpal. Right now we have Supreme Court judges. It's very common for lawyers to tell you, withdraw your case right now or seek adjournment because this judge is pro-poor or anti-poor, then the same thing is likely to happen. So the point I'm making is the ideological baggage needs to be, and these kind of powers to initiate action, especially with regard to the direction of economic investments and economic reforms, need to be looked at far more carefully. Otherwise,
thank you. There are two issues that are one second. There are two issues you brought out. One is searches and seizures if there is reason to believe. That perhaps the judges are the best persons to clarify. The second is the judicial powers or quasi-judicial powers of cancellation of licenses, etc. Is it appropriate or not is something that we have to. It is not. She is quoting section 8 of the draft bill, so I do not know it.
Section 8. page 30. That is version 1, 2.1. Version 2.1.
Order cancellation, modification of license or lease or
We are talking about
permission.
PPP partnership. You know, things that need to be done by consumer courts. For example, if corporate sector company
The point is well
has,
taken,
etc.
but Prashant, you can clarify, otherwise I'll request the Chief Justices to pronounce on that.
I don't think that there is anything. Okay. It says. Okay.
This we can make recommendatory. There were 3 other sections which we made this as a omission. We'll make it recommendatory.
Actually, some of these, what was thought was initially that if you find that a particular contract is being given on the basis of corruption, if during the investigation it is found that a contract is being given on the basis of corruption, whether the Lokpal should also have the further power to then, in that case, direct that this contract should be either not given or rescinded or whatever. Thereafter, actually, all these powers, including the recommendation, including the issue of whether the government servant should be suspended, etc., all these was decided that these will be made recommendatory. And the government would have to, once this recommendation is made, the government would have to take a decision within 15 days or 1 month of that, of this such a recommendation.
Mr. Sandeep.
In the UN Convention, which contemplates creation of an independent authority with powers to investigate corruption, etc., there is a provision in Article 34 with due regard to the rights of third parties acquired in good faith. Each state party shall take measures in accordance with the fundamental principles of its domestic law to address consequences of corruption. In this context, state parties may consider corruption a relevant factor in legal proceedings to annul or rescind a contract, withdraw a concession or other similar instrument, or takes any other remedial action. That is why the question was, once the corruption of a person is established, and therefore, in that case, could some authority also not cancel a contract which has been obtained on the basis of corruption? And I will be cancelled. You cancel it, and I will cancel it.
Totally right, but also phrases like has reason to believe are different from has been proven to.
That is for urgency, sir.
That is a provision which has been upheld by courts, that reason to believe is a well-defined legal expression of art. There is no problem about it.
Sir, 5 seconds, I think Madhu Kishwar just you see, we issue so many search warrants. They say, I, on the basis of evidence placed before me, have reasons to believe, right? It is I.
And you
Court
misuse
can,
that power
just
all the
let me
time.
finish it. You see, it is I who can be hanged by the court, and they have been hanged by the court on the basis of evidence placed before him. And I tell you, sir, there will be several agencies which will have to be looked after by Lokpal. Don't think one agency or two. This country has gone so diverse in its crimes and its areas of operation. What I am simply suggesting is powers of search with every agency, or PPP or anything, will have to be there, because take small case like Arushi murder case. The entire first very search itself or investigation or whatever was botched up. So power of search are very essential for preventing crime in this country in any sphere, and all crimes are interlinked with it.
There is a consensus on that. There's no reason to
No, that's
belabor
okay.
that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody agrees with that.
He raised a point about the legal permissibility of it, and that is
No, I raised the point about cancellation, seizure, attaching property.
Please.
Ji.
Seizure, search and seizure is one side. After inquiry, investigation or whatever, you come to a conclusion, annul a contract or cancel a license, whether you want to do it yourself or recommend it is the question. So where search and seizure is concerned, it is an expression of art. That word has been judicially defined and accepted. And what are the requirements? subjective and objective requirements of that satisfaction are also laid down in law. I think this is a familiar expression used in all statutes. Yes.
So, with due respect, I mean, I obviously can't compete with you in knowledge, but my only question is...
Can't compete with
the
you in your art of persuasion.
Well, my only appeal right now to you all is that the power of search and the rest has been grossly misused by the existing agencies that already have it, without really unearthing much corruption. It's led to a lot more corruption. So what I'm saying is some safeguards on that it's not indiscriminate, that it's not arbitrary, that there is, and if it is done wrongly, that there is...
May I intervene in that?
On this context,
the justices are assuring us that these are all legally acceptable expressions, well defined. Two, without such powers, Lokpal will be dysfunctional or non-functional. Three, as far as license are concerned, the Prashant agrees that it should be recommendatory, but it doesn't mean the recommendation can be thrown into the dustbin. It has to be a due process and there will be consequences following. I think it addresses the concerns reasonably well.
It doesn't address one concern.
In any case, the High Court, Supreme Court jurisdiction under the writ it still continues, Article 226 and 30.
No, please, 1 minute only. What I'm saying is existing powers, let's say of the Income Tax Department, they have driven people to suicide by misusing that power. And it's very legally well defined, but they do it. Now, is there any accountability if they exceed their brief, if it's nullified? As of now, there isn't.
Madhurji, may I have a word? Merely misuse of power does not mean that the law is bad. You see, misuse of power doesn't mean the only possibility of misuse of power. Now here, reason to believe is based on as a consequence of information in the possession of. So all this would be open to judicial review if there is a misuse. And reason to believe is an expression. This is not the first act in which it would be used. In umpteen. So it is all judicially recognized. No problem. We appreciate your anxiety, but we are only trying to tell you that there is, that anxiety probably maybe is overstated.
I want to add only one thing. Power to search, the authorization to conduct a search has been given to any official. Normally the Supreme Court has always been upholding the view that it should be given to a senior officer. If you see the definition of word Lokpal, it says any officer or the employee exercising the power and carrying out its functions and responsibility in the manner and to the extent assigned to it under the Act, and so on. Now, I would say the power to authorize should be given at a fairly senior level. That is not in the draft.
You see, that's a different issue. The question was whether the power of search and seizure is there.
That of
But
course.
seniority is no proof of honesty and accountability, sir. We know senior officers can be vindictive, they can be undertaking malafide action. All I'm trying to say is if it's proven to be malafide, what's the consequence for those who order seizures and all the rest of it? We've seen in recent years how it's been grossly misused.
Sir, can I just say something?
As it is, these powers are available to all courts. Why are we not giving it to Lokpal? I don't see any reason.
Sir,
I'm saying
just one provision of law
safeguards against
under
misuse.
Prevention of Money Laundering Act. There are attachment provisions. There is a scheduled crimes within which PC Act crime also comes into picture. And adequate safeguards are there because the adjudicating authority is there, appellate authority is there, etc., etc. So this authority can just pass on the information. That would be the right. They have all the paraphernalia to take care of that. So far as the genuine seizures are concerned, so far as the apprehension of non-genuine seizures are concerned, the section 451 of CRPC will take care of it because the court is competent enough to release the goods to whoever is entitled to in between the trial. So these two provisions, if it can be related, somehow related to these, it will take care of all these concerns about improper seizures.
Sir, one point, that point I was making is, because the prevention of corruption in private sector is not a small subject to be covered in this.
We'll come to corruption.
Just one point. Corruption it has a separate subject and denomination it has to be tackled. What is lobbying? What is that? So it should be separately.
No, my appeal is, the definition of corruption is going to come later. As of now, it is the definitional issue of what is corruption. We cannot discuss that now, but that issue is coming up, please. Maya and Venkatesh Naik, they wanted to make a point.
Thank you. Actually, I just wanted to support one part of Madhu's question, which is, I entirely agree that if we are going to have an effective body, apart from all that we discussed in the morning, it must have the powers to go after its prey, to go after whoever is reasonably suspected of having corrupt connections or being properly a suspect. But given all of this, I do feel that when things go wrong, a bad officer, a bad department, the Lokpal himself, or one of the many Lokpals himself, taking it into his head to be vindictive, or even not vindictive, he might be just wrong in his judgment. Now, in those cases, I find that the present remedies to the individual at court are not sufficient. Whatever damage is done through the years of litigation, etc., the pauperization of the people involved, the small people who can't defend themselves, etc., what are we going to do about that? Is there going to be a civil remedy? Is there going to be some kind of compensation that is paid? Is there going to be some punishment, removal? What is the accountability of all of the people who come under Lokpal? Today if the CVC, not so much the CVC, but today if the CBI neglects my case at the wink and the nod of somebody, or if he goes after me twice as well, also at the wink and nod of somebody, I am helpless against this abuse of power. So this is a moment where we are creating a really good remedy to also think about this end of it, and that's what I'd like to understand.
If salt loses its flavor, who will salt it the salt? Is the question. Mr. Prashant.
So I think Maya and Madhu have made very important points. It's true, actually we are seeing this day in and day out. Abuse of police powers of arrests, abuse of police powers of searches and seizures, etc. We are seeing this. Actually, in the police reforms judgment, there is one part which says that police complaints authorities have to be set up at every district level and the state level, where complaints against precisely such abuse of authority could be made to those police complaints authorities. These police complaints authorities have been mandated to be independent authorities, one district headed by a district judge, retired district judge in each district, and having some other independent people as well. Unfortunately, they have not been set up. What we can build into this act itself is some such structure of complaints, independent complaints authorities to go into complaints of abuse of authority by officers functioning under the Lokpal. I think this would be a very, very important safeguard and provision which is not there in the current draft, which needs to be built in. Some kind of independent, which would be independent of the Lokpal itself. Some independent complaints authority to be built into this act itself.
Okay, we have 66 minutes left to cover another 8 or 9 issues. So, Venkatesh, we will take this as adequate discussion on these set of issues. I think there have been reasonable instruments and institutions built. No, we'll prepare a summary, and then I'm sure on specific issues we can request the legal luminaries and jurists and others to sit and come up with a greater thing, and the drafting committee can take those things on board. I don't think a final solution to all problems is possible. Some things have to be left open in that case.
Thank you, Chair.
It has been a very useful discussion. Many valuable suggestions have come in today's meeting. What I felt was, because I'm a member of the drafting committee, that this should not remain a one-time exercise. Could we think of making it some sort of exercise? Namely, after every meeting of the drafting committee, we could again come back to and discuss it further, get further suggestions, and keep on.
ये तो आप हम लोगों को बता रहे हैं।
I am maybe this very group, the various organizations, I would implore to them. I would implore them. It's a very important national venture with which we are engaged. Not only we are very grateful for the very important suggestions which have been made, but I would feel, let us have the benefit of their suggestions continuously till we have completed the drafting process in the committee. That is what I, as co-chairman of the drafting committee, would implore this assembly. It will encroach on your valuable time, Justice Verma, but we are entitled to demand from you that time.
I think, sir, the Chief Justices, my appeal to both of them would be, you are anyway committed to national duty and you have decided not to do anything for personal gain. And therefore, while we cannot have such an elaborate exercise each time, if a smaller group of eminent people with institutional experience and wisdom, they act not necessarily always formally meeting, but we can create a mechanism of regular interface. Now in these days of electronic communication, that may not be possible. I'm sure that will be of value, and let's see how best we can do it. I think it's a valuable thing. But we can't have an elaborate exercise, because even today we have seen enough people starting de novo, general discussion on corruption and morality. So there's a problem in our country, discussion. Venkatesh.
But we are entitled to demand this.
All of us are entitled to demand that, and I think they're more than happy to oblige. So as long as there's no spear campaign against them.
I think we got a good RTI Act precisely because there were many rounds of consultation.
Took 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, and it was spread over years. And so, to my mind, follow-up exercises of this kind are much needed.
No, my appeal is see, on both sides we intend to cover every flank as possible. There are many things that are going to be left unsaid. We have to leave it to the judgment of the players at the time. You cannot have a law which addresses every concern. I mean, the temptation is very strong. Absolutely. So, be a little confident about our institutions. Of course, they mess up, but still India is working. I mean, don't lose heart.
We can apply the saying that we need not wait for the best and throw the good.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick point, since there is a positive atmosphere of getting feedback on the Jan Lokpal bill, I would just request the draftspersons to enlighten us on clause 17, subclause 2. Now 17 is about matters not subject to investigation, and it starts by saying that the Lokpal shall not conduct any investigation under this Act in case of a grievance in respect of any action, and number 2 says, take any action taken by a judicial or quasi-judicial body unless the complainant alleges maloffense. So now supposing, let us say, I lose a writ petition before the High Court and I allege that the judge took money and did this. I am merely alleging. Will it launch or cause the Lokpal to launch an investigation? Because right now the way it is worded, I can challenge. That's already
covered when you discuss judiciary, so don't bring in again judiciary now.
Judiciary has been cut.
Prashant, can you elaborate now, or would you like to come back later or have discussion with him privately?
Actually, the whole idea is if the Lokpal, as this current draft envisages, that the Lokpal will investigate acts of corruption of the judiciary as well. In that case, all that this is saying is that, well, at the very minimum, the investigation will only be conducted if it is clear that this is a case of mala fides. Then perhaps a case of corruption could be investigated.
In case insofar as judiciary is concerned, because we evolved some broad
Yeah,
consensus
that's
in the morning, let's not revisit that issue, because that will take another 3 hours.
Maybe I have an important point.
I think Justice Venkataraman gave a very valuable suggestion, and we need to ponder over it, whether we could make it a Lokpal and Judicial Accountability Act, and we could build into this very act whatever way we want the complaints against judicial corruption to be investigated. We could think about it.
Only thing is, you are an eminent jurist, that requires a constitutional amendment necessary unless you touch on Article 124, and also appointment of judiciary unless you go into that. I don't think a law in itself will address the problem.
See, a separate act is something which we thought may be more desirable. Put everything which you want for judiciary in that, and no problem. And both of them could be processed simultaneously. The only thing is, by incorporating it in this very act, we may run into some troubles. And well, there are people vested interest wanting to see that it won't go through. And that may be one more reason why. So you can achieve the same purpose by having that in a separate act. Put everything which you think is necessary. As a matter of fact, now that he has already indicated, that's the exercise we have been performing. And I think from our experience, whatever strictness was required, and neither of us have been liberal in this respect. So our standards of strictness with some liberality to take into account the consensus, that probably has gone into the
Then, can we take it that this issue has been adequately addressed, Prashant? Item 11, powers for removal of civil servants. Only one issue I would like to flag there. Obviously, if Lokpal, Lokayukta comes to the conclusion that an official has acted in a corrupt manner and does not deserve to be in office, it's untenable that that person should continue. But unless we also look at Article 311 and see the consequential changes required, one suggestion that came from, I think, Mr. Satish Sane is, can we incorporate this in Article 311 2C, whereby without going to the elaborate provision of inquiries, etc., an official can be removed on certain considerations. Can we also add the Lokpal/Lokayukta's recommendation or direction? A very simple issue. It may not have been
I don't think we have done. 11 comes in the basic, as Justice Santosh Hegde explained, as he is doing in Karnataka, all that has happened is that the disciplinary jurisdiction over these public servants has now been vested with the Lokayukt there. So they take disciplinary action, of course after due inquiry, etc.
No, but
no, there is one
problem is the material collected at the investigation stage and the finding of the Lokayukta, that's a case which has got to go to a departmental inquiry. When the departmental inquiry commences, fresh round of evidence has to be let in. Therefore, what has now come up is a very interesting suggestion from a police officer. I think you should listen to it. And this will shortcut the need to do that. The issue was when a prosecution is done, whether pending prosecution we can dismiss it. There's so much of legal time wasted on that issue in the courts, and even today it is not fully resolved. Wait till department inquiry must be stayed and criminal prosecution must be stayed. All this kind of confusion, I think there's one suggestion we may consider it.
The Administrative Reforms Commission also recommended that actually you must do away with Article 311, etc. For various reasons, government has not gone into that. And there's no reason to open all that, because the whole public servants, 20 million employees of India will become enemies of whoever is now trying to fight this. Therefore, if you simply bring in an Article 311 2C, this provision in addition to national security, etc., whereby without any further inquiry on the basis of Lokayukta's or Lokpal's findings, the person can be dismissed by the President or the Governor. That will solve the problem. So we make a recommendation. It's for the constitutional amendment anyway. That becomes much more tidy. I don't know if the Chief Election Commissioners would support the broad point.
No.
Why not remain suspended? It is clear.
No, all those things will happen anyway. That's easy. But removal, unfortunately, will be brought in the tomorrow.
In Article 311, there are 3 clauses. First clause speaks of giving a reasonable opportunity before imposing a major penalty. Article 311. Article 311 clause B says that for reasons to be recorded in writing, you can dispense with the inquiry and dismiss the matter.
Under that, see.
Under that, no, but what you can add is you can add another clause saying that on the basis of the inquiry of the Lokpal and his findings, a man can be...
That is the solution. That is the solution.
Where the finding has been recorded about his guilt.
Yes.
Or his misconduct.
And
that is sufficient for the president without dispensing.
There is another aspect to it. Now, under major penalties can be imposed only by the appointing authority. For Lokpal's thing can only be a recommendation. It cannot be imposed.
No, president can remove
because he is the appointing authority.
Quite right.
In his capacity as appointing authority. For instance, a head of department can be an appointing authority in the case of a junior officer. Therefore, Lokpal, you can't transfer those powers to the Lokpal.
No, then that's what I'm saying. No, the appointing authority will give an opportunity to the and on that basis take a decision. Lokpal cannot recommend punishment. He cannot recommend penalty.
I think we're all saying the same thing. Basically, a mechanism by which public servants who found to be corrupt can be removed without much ado.
Yes.
So 11 and 12 are covered. Item 13. Now the definition of corruption and the tightening of Prevention of Corruption Act. Unless that is done simultaneously, there is a problem. Raghu.
Actually, I think it's very important to enlarge the definition of corruption. Whether those acts of corruption should come under the Lokayukta or not is an issue that I'm not touching upon right now. But if you look at the UNCAC, it defines 12 things as amounting to corruption. An Indian law, that is the Prevention of Corruption Act and the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, only recognizes 3 things. Some of the important things that are left out in Indian law as not amounting to corruption is concealment, undue influence, obstruction of justice, private corruption, that is a private party paying a bribe in another private company, liability of companies for the corrupt acts of their employees, and corruption of foreign officials whether within or outside the country. And I think all these are very important. They need to be covered under a definition of corruption.
Before foreign officials, you said something else. What is that liability?
That is liabilities of companies for the corrupt acts of their industry. Today, for example, so therefore, I think that this definition has to be covered. Now we are only one among 17 countries remaining now. Nepal is the last to have ratified the conventions. India is one among just 17 countries. Every other country in South Asia has ratified and amended their laws. So I think it's a matter of shame. I think we should be doing this very quickly. But the question is, do we then bring them all under the Lokayukta? The Lokpal, I'm not very sure. Because if you do bring, start investigating to private corruption, I think we lose the focus of what
for the time being, I don't think we're envisaging corruption to expand into private sector per se, unless there is a natural monopoly created by government's grant of that monopoly. Power sector, water sector. Otherwise, we get into a quagmire.
But the definition per se...
Sir, Vinita Roy and then Mr. Krishnamurthy.
Thank you very much, Dr. JP, for you. This won't be new because this is again a part of the ARC's recommendations and you were critical in it. But so far the POC Act actually covers things where there's a pecuniary angle to it. And we had discussed in the ARC and we felt that there were a host of other issues which caused immense damage to public interest, if I can put it that way. And we had essentially thought of 4 such things. The first and possibly the most important is the gross perversion of the Constitution and democratic institutions, including willful violation of the oath of office. Now, we have often seen that this happens and there are indictments by various courts, but it's never perceived as being some sort of a corruption. The second is a class of offences is abuse of authority, unduly favouring or harming someone without any pecuniary consideration or gratification, But in such cases, you know, there's a lot of partisan interest, nepotism, personal prejudices, etc. So the damage done by such willful acts of denial of one's dues by criminal neglect also have profound consequences to society and actually undermine the very framework of governance. The third is obstruction or coercion of justice by unduly influencing law enforcement agencies and prosecution, which is also a common occurrence in the country. Again, in many cases, there need not necessarily be monetary considerations, but they are partisan, nepotism, prejudice, etc. So, and actually the relevant failure of justice again undermines public confidence in systems and breeds some sort of an anarchy. And finally, squandering public money, including ostentatious public official lifestyles, etc. Again, there may not be any misappropriation involved, but the public exchequer at large suffers. And I think both public interest and citizens' trust in government are undermined. I would also like to say in all fairness that the group of ministers had gone into this, and these were rejected on the ground that it's very difficult to establish mens rea. So I don't know, so that is one issue, but I still thought it could be something that could be discussed. And then there are some other acts which are not there in our country, you know, dealing with collusive bribery or false claims act. I think legislation like that should also form a part of the anti-corruption framework. Thank you.
Mr. Krishnamurthy, then I'll come back to you, sir.
As far as corruption in private sector is concerned, I think unless public funds are involved, you should not get involved into that. Lokpal should not get involved. But the company law provisions may have to be tightened regarding misfeasance and malfeasance. Under the existing arrangement, the liquidation proceedings, they are mainly due to malfeasance and misfeasance, but unfortunately, there has been no major development in the amendment of law relating to that, criminal prosecution against the directors, etc. So they need to be addressed. Along with this, I would suggest that though this is not part of the topic here, political corruption arising out of representatives who are criminally charged and politically corrupt. I think we have been making this suggestion for so many years, no action has been taken by the government. So in order to deal with political corruption, I think you should ensure that corrupt people should not get into the legislature, corrupt and criminal people. That legislation should reiterate. I'm not saying that it is part of this exercise. We must reiterate it.
I'm not smiling for that reason. Right now, that is the single most criterion, not only for selection but also for electability, sadly. In Andhra Pradesh, we have by-election where 200 votes is being spent this week. We are discussing really, in some sense, academic issues here when the real rot is going on unchecked. So there's much bigger battle ahead.
So just taking, can we suggest that a person who is charge sheeted under this law will not be eligible for elections? Would that be?
That's a sure way of this law never getting enacted. So let's not have conflicting objectives, because even if they are worthy, we lose that. That battle, electoral reform, has to be a separate one in order to be able to win the battle. It's absolutely necessary.
No, but I have a point to make here.
This form may not be the best.
No, that is something which must also be taken up.
Yes.
Quite separate.
Sir, I have a point to make here, that the Lokpal legislation, even after it is enacted, it will have no meaning unless we have a parallel code of conduct for public functionaries, that is MPs, MLAs, ministers and all. Because every single misdemeanor or malfeasance doesn't amount to a crime. But if it doesn't amount to a crime, all the investigation and inquiry done by the Lokpal will be of no avail. It may not amount to a crime, but may still amount to wrongful doing.
Loss of
office. So we need a parallel code of conduct, ethical conduct, including even privileges. For instance, most
let me tell you.
Yes.
Anna has already declared. That this Lokpal bill is the first thing. The next item on his agenda is electoral reform.
So that is the way to go about it.
That's a good idea of the model. It's like on the pattern of the model bill, model code of conduct of the elections. I think it's a good idea.
Yes.
That's another way per force you start attitudinal changes.
With reference to that,
it's a good idea. Somehow there is a violation of the code. It's a good idea. To be considered.
I think that part Mr. Raman Roy is talking about has to be part of this bill, because what is the standard by which you are examining? If it's merely corruption as a criminal act, I suspect much of abuse of authority will not fall part of this net. Electoral reform apart, that has to be considered. The probity is different from merely not being corrupt. As Justice Verma and Justice Venkateswara keep
Misconduct
saying.
is there of government servants in this.
No, MPs and ministers. Right now we don't.
This is essentially focused on public functionaries, not government servants.
Can I suggest which I was...
General Sekhar now.
I want a clarification from the co-chair and Prashant, because my idea of functioning of the Lokpal is quite different from what's been discussed today when it talks of corruption. I thought what the Lokpal should be doing is, of every 1,000 cases before it or 10,000 cases, he empowers all the agencies to function as they are now, the institutional figures, and he takes up or she takes up just 10 cases which have a national impact. That's how you do every quarter. You don't get involved in everything. That's my idea of how it should be functioning.
That's what has been envisaged.
What I was earlier suggesting was, the way we have a Prevention of Corruption Act at present, we should have a separate act for prevention of corruption in the private sector with the new setup, and that Lokpal should be the authority to implement that also. Because one thing, because we have not defined what is lobbying, what is third-party gratification, and then what is valuation. With the intangible assets taking lot of values, suppose even a 2G spectrum, how do you value this? Unless you define these terms in a separate act, these are quite complicated. You will not be able to pinpoint what is corruption. Valuation of intangible, 80% of the future wealth will be in the form of intangible assets. So these kind of things should be tackled in a separate, and my humble request is we should have a prevention of corruption in the private sector separate bill, and that should be made implementable by the Lokpal. That's what I was trying to make, which will define the role and ethics.
They made a very valid point earlier. Let's not overburden Lokpal with that. If public corruption is controlled by Lokpal, we'll be eternally grateful. For the private corruption, there is a Companies Act. Let's empower them, let's change the law, let's improve the processes, let there be more competition, more choice, more transparency. But Lokpal going into that will only undermine the real purpose. On the one hand, you want the Prime Minister of India to be under the control of Lokpal. On the other hand, you want a private minion of a small company. We are now becoming a little unwieldy.
No sir, but
there is corruption is self-evident, but they can't be one answer to all problems of India.
Third-party gratification will not be covered because most of the bureaucrats are running NGOs. And how the money passes to those trusts?
Public money is involved, then that.
No, public money is third-party. How do you define that? How do you cover the third-party gratifications, lobbying? How do you put Neera Radia under the Corruption Act? These lobbying you will not define in the current.
Dr. Mishra, as a former head of CBI, he is well placed.
You see, corruption is always read along with public funds. As far as abuse of office in any form is concerned, that can be brought within the ambit of corruption. These extracurricular activities by government servants can be stopped by an administrative order, an executive order, that no government servant would be associated with the NGO or run an NGO or so on and so forth. So for that, neither any law is required, nor is it required that we bring it within the ambit of Lokpal. The Lokpal should not become a Khudai khidmatgar, or Khudai Fozgar. I mean, it should have a clearly defined role and let it fulfill that. If we take everything under the sun, then I think it will come to a naught.
No, we are not saying Lokpal will prevent corruption under the